That day, came face to face with a truth I had lived my entire life without knowing. My mother suddenly collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. While the nurse was adjusting her clothes, an old envelope slipped out of her pocket and fell to the floor. Picked it up without thinking. But the handwriting on the front froze my hands in place. To my real daughter. For a moment, couldn't breathe. Real daughter? What does that even mean? My legs started trembling right there in the hallway. That day, everything believed in collapsed. And from that moment on my entire life began to change. Ellen Parker, 65 years old. She spent her whole life working as an elementary school teacher. And now she lives in a quiet neighborhood, tending a small garden behind her home. People remember her as calm, gentle, and endlessly patient. But deep inside, there had always been a small, unspoken worry. A shadow she never quite understood. Ellen sat in the hospital waiting room and took a long, steady breath. This wasn't the first time her mother had collapsed. Lately, her memory had been fading, and she often stopped mid-sentence as if something frightened her. Whenever that happened, her mother would whisper the same words. Ellen, there are things you don't need to know. Those words, they stuck inside Ellen's heart like a quiet, stubborn nail. She gazed out the window and murmured softly, almost to herself. What are you hiding from me, Mom? There had been a moment, just a few days earlier. They were eating dinner when her mother suddenly set her spoon down. Ellen, do you remember the house we used to live in? Of course. Why? We had to leave that house because the real reason was. But she never finished the sentence. Ellen told herself it was just age, just a confused memory. Yet a strange uneasiness began to rise inside her. A feeling she couldn't shake. Her mother's eyes held something. A fear that seemed to come from a very old place. The hard plastic chair pressed uncomfortably into Ellen's back, and she straightened her posture. She reached into her pocket for the old envelope she had picked up earlier, then hesitated and put it back. Part of her wanted to open it right away, but something inside warned her that whatever was inside might be a truth she could never turn away from. Just then, a member of the medical staff stepped out. Ma'am, could you come with me for a moment? Ellen rose slowly from her seat. With every small step she took toward that door, the worry in her chest grew heavier and heavier. As if, once she walked through it, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The ticking of the clock in the waiting room sounded unusually loud. Ellen paused in front of her mother's room, her fingers pressing against the edge of the old envelope in her pocket. Such a small piece of paper, yet it felt unbearably heavy. Just then, a nurse approached with a chart in hand. Ma'am, you're the daughter, correct? Something in her tone hesitated just for a moment, but Ellen felt it. Yes, I am, Ellen replied. Is something wrong? The nurse flipped through the chart carefully. Well, there's something a little unusual in the records. Ellen felt a faint tremor in her chest. Unusual? What do you mean? The nurse lowered her voice slightly. It says here that you're not listed as a biological relative. The words spread slowly through Ellen's mind, as if echoing down a long hallway. Not a biological relative? Her heart beat to death heavily inside her. With an unsteady hand, she pulled the envelope from her pocket. The words on the front came rushing back into her memory. Simple, but devastating. To my real daughter. Is this connected somehow? Ellen whispered under her breath. Her thoughts tangled together, each possibility darker than the last. Was her mother hiding something about their relationship? Or was she trying to protect her from something all these years? At that moment, a doctor appeared at the end of the hallway. Ms. Parker? I'd like to speak with you for a moment. Ellen lifted her gaze slowly. The doctor's expression was calm, but there was a seriousness beneath it that made her stomach sink. Her heartbeat quickened again. There was no turning back now. Whatever truth she had lived without for 65 years, it was waiting just beyond that door. Clutching the envelope tightly, Ellen followed the doctor toward the consultation room. With each step she took, it felt as though the world she knew was drifting farther and farther away. After the short conversation with the doctor, Ellen couldn't bring herself to go home. Instead, she sat motionless in a small café near the hospital. Steam rose gently from the cup in her hands, but she couldn't feel a trace of its warmth. Only one sentence kept echoing in her mind. Not a biological relative. How can that be possible? She whispered shakily to herself. At this age, is this really something I'm hearing for the first time? When Ellen finally returned home, she closed the door behind her and exhaled deeply, her back slowly sliding against the wall. It felt as though every bit of strength had drained from her body. Then her gaze fell toward her mother's room. The door, always left slightly open, never locked. Inside were all the things her mother had treasured throughout her life. Memories, secrets, pieces of a past Ellen suddenly realized she knew so little about. With hesitant steps, she turned the doorknob. It cracked softly as it opened, and a faint scent of her mother's perfume drifted out, wrapping the room in a gentle, almost painful nostalgia. Sunlight filtered in through the window, resting quietly on the blanket atop the neatly made bed. Just looking at it made Ellen's chest tighten. Mom, what were you hiding from me? On the desk sat a small wooden box. Ellen paused, then slowly lifted the lid. Inside were a few old photographs, and several JJOE documents arranged neatly. The photo showed a baby and a young woman she did not recognize. Who are they? Ellen traced the edges of the picture with her fingertips. Then she turned it over, and froze at the handwritten message on the back. Please protect this child. Her breath caught in her throat. A strange, cold shock gripped her chest. Protect who was supposed to protect who? Just then, a thin envelope slipped out from between the papers. Ellen instinctively picked it up. On the front, in faded handwriting, were the words, "A letter that was never delivered." Her heartbeat quickened sharply. Whatever was inside that envelope, it might hold the answers to every question that had been haunting her. But her hands were trembling too much to open it. No, not yet. I'm not ready. Ellen could feel it. The moment she had been avoiding her entire life was coming closer and closer. Her mother's past, and the truth Ellen herself had never been told. All of it was waiting for her, just beyond the fear trembling in her fingertips. Ellen couldn't sleep at all that night. She kept reaching for the envelope, her fingertips brushing against the seal, only to pull back the moment her breath grew tight. Why does this scare me so much? She whispered to herself, exhausted. Just as dawn began to break, a phone rang. Ma'am, this is the hospital. Your mother's condition has taken a slight turn. Ellen didn't even wait for the nurse to finish. She grabbed her coat and ran out the door, her heartbeat pounding so violently that her hands shook as she tried to start the car. When she reached the hospital, the hallway was eerily still. A silence so heavy it felt as if the entire building were holding its breath. Ellen steadied herself and slowly pushed open the door to her mother's room. Her mother lay there, staring faintly at the ceiling. Her face pale, fragile, as if she might disappear at any moment. "Mom, I'm here." When Ellen held her hand, her mother's fingers trembled weakly in response. "Ellen." Her voice was barely more than a whisper of wind. "That letter, did you read it?" Ellen felt her chest tighten. "Not yet. I was afraid." Her mother's head moved in a fragile shake. "I knew you would be. But I had to protect." "Protect who, Mom? Were you protecting me?" A thin trail of tears gathered at the corner of her mother's eyes. "I'm sorry, Ellen. I was afraid that day you'd be taken away." Her voice broke, swallowed by the softness of the oxygen mask. Suddenly, the monitor beside her spiked. Its beeping growing fast, then slow, then uneven. "Please wait, Mom. Just tell me one more thing." Doctors and nurses rushed in, and Ellen stepped back, her fists clenched so tightly they hurt. Taken away? By who? And why? The air in the room grew colder, heavier, and Ellen felt it. A point of no return drawing closer. The edges of the truth beginning to form, sharpening, solidifying. And now, the moment she had feared the most, opening that letter, was no longer something she could avoid. It was coming for her. And it was close. Ellen stood in the hallway, gripping the railing, her mind blank and her heart pounding painfully. Her mother's final words kept echoing through her head. "I was afraid they'd take you away." "Take me? Who? Why?" The questions circled endlessly as she tried to steady her breath. Then Ellen sensed someone watching her. At the far end of the hallway, a woman in a light brown coat stood with her hands clasped tightly together. Her eyes held a mixture of hesitation and something like sorrow. She walked toward Ellen and spoke softly. "Are you Ellen Parker?" Ellen lifted her head, her expression frozen. "Yes. And you are?" The woman hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "My name is Sarah Lee. I've known your mother for a very long time." Ellen's voice cracked sharply. "You knew my mother?" Sarah nodded slowly. "And I came here today to see you." "Me? What for?" Ellen felt a tremor rising in her chest. Sarah looked down, gathering strength, then guided Ellen toward the window at the end of the corridor. "This won't be easy to hear. But I believe you have the right to know." Ellen swallowed hard. "Please just tell me." Sarah unzipped a small pouch and pulled out an old photograph. Ellen stared at it. Faces she recognized and didn't recognize. Memories she couldn't place. "Your mother gave this to me," Sarah said quietly. "She asked me to keep it for you." "For me? Why?" Ellen's voice trembled. Sarah inhaled deeply. "She wanted me to give it to you when you turned 30. But life got complicated. And I never found the right moment." "The truth?" Ellen whispered. "What truth?" The evening sun streamed through the hallway windows, casting a warm but fragile light around them. Sarah's expression softened, then tightened with pain. Then, finally she spoke. "Ellen, did you know that you're not your mother's biological daughter?" Ellen stopped breathing. The world around her folded into silence. "What did you just say?" Her voice was barely audible. Sarah lowered her head. "She loved you more deeply than you could imagine. And she sacrificed everything just to keep you safe." The words pierced through Ellen's chest, with a force she wasn't prepared for. The door to the truth. The truth shed spent her life walking past was now swinging wide open. Ellen stood frozen, the photograph trembling in her hands. Her fingertips had grown cold, and her heart pounded so violently, it felt as though it might break through her ribs. "I'm not her daughter?" The words escaped her lips before she even realized she was speaking. Her own voice sounded foreign, thin, fragile. Sarah lowered her gaze. "Ellen, your mother lived with a deep sense of guilt for many years. She wanted to tell you. She truly did. But she was terrified." "Terrified? Of what? What happened?" Sarah lifted her head slowly and pointed to the writing on the back of the photograph. "Please protect this child." Ellen inhaled sharply. Those words felt like they came from another lifetime. A voice she should have remembered but didn't. Sarah continued. "That child was you, Ellen." The world tilted for a moment. "Me? Your biological mother was trying to escape. An abusive husband. She entrusted you to someone she trusted. And the woman you grew up calling mom took you and ran. She saved you." Ellen pressed her hands against her temples. "Wait, I don't understand." "So I was." Sarah nodded gently. "You weren't abandoned, Ellen. You were protected." Ellen felt something break open inside her. An ache she didn't know she had been carrying. Grief, anger, relief. Every emotion collided at once, and welled up behind her eyes. "My mother, she went through all of that for me?" Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Sarah reached into her bag again and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. "This is the last letter from your biological mother. She wanted you to have it. And now it's time." Ellen stared at the envelope. The air around her seemed to go still, as if the world were holding its breath. Then, slowly, with both hands, she accepted it. There was no turning back now. The door to the truth she had avoided her entire life was finally opening. Completely. Ellen stared at the letter in her hands, unable to steady her breathing. It felt as though her entire life, every memory, every belief, was sealed inside that thin envelope. "Should I read it now?" Her voice trembled. Sarah nodded gently. "Yes. I think this is the moment." With shaking fingers, Ellen tore open the seal. The soft rip of the paper sounded impossibly loud, as if echoing through her chest. The paper inside was old and yellowed, the handwriting delicate yet determined, written by someone who had given everything she had left. Ellen began to read. "To my child. To the daughter I could not protect. If you are reading this, then I am no longer with you." Ellen's breath stopped. "That day, I ran with you in my arms. I ran because I wanted to save you. But I couldn't run far enough. In the end, I had to entrust you to the one person I believed would keep you safe." Her vision blurred. "Entrusted to who?" she whispered. The next line shattered her. "That person is the woman you now call mother." Ellen covered her mouth, a choked sound escaping her. She didn't want to believe it. Yet deep down, something inside her knew. She loved you. She was not your mother by blood, but she protected you with everything she had. She fled to keep you from the man who wanted to take you away. Tears streamed down Ellen's face, before she even realized she was crying. Then she reached the final line, and her entire body trembled. "I was not the one who raised you, but she was the one who saved you. She is, and always will be, your true mother." Ellen hugged the letter to her chest, her voice breaking into sobs. Mom. Mom, you saved me. All this time. Sarah placed a gentle hand on her arm. You weren't abandoned, Ellen. You were loved. By both of them. In that moment, Ellen felt her entire world rearranging itself. Memories, tears, unanswered questions, all falling into place like pieces of a long-lost puzzle. And at the center of that truth was a single realization. I wasn't left behind. I was protected. Ellen held the letter tightly against her chest, unable to speak, unable even to breathe properly. The sunset outside colored the hallway a deep red. But to her, everything looked muted, distant. Standing in front of her mother's room, Ellen wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and whispered softly, Mom, I'm so sorry. How did I not recognize that look in your eyes? The warmth she had felt all her life. The tenderness, the quiet sacrifices. All of it crashed over her at once. She held the door handle, unable to let go. Some part of her felt that opening the door meant facing a goodbye she wasn't ready for. Ellen. Sarah approached gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to rush. Anyone would feel overwhelmed right now. Ellen nodded slowly, eyes closed. She saved me, didn't she? On that day I can't remember. She ran with me. She protected me. Yes, Sarah said softly. She made a promise to your biological mother. A promise to keep you safe. And she kept that promise her whole life. Ellen sank into a nearby chair, as if her legs could no longer support her. Images of the woman she'd always called Mom rose vividly in her mind. Her gentle smile, the warm meals, the nights she stayed awake by Ellen's bedside, all the signs she missed. Now finally making sense. I never understood, Ellen whispered, why she loved me so fiercely. Why she held me so close. We didn't even share blood, but... Sarah smiled softly. There are bonds stronger than blood. To her you were everything. Ellen looked down at the letter again. Two different women. Two different kinds of love. Two stories of sacrifice. All intertwined inside her heart. What am I supposed to do now? Her voice trembled. Sarah answered gently. First, let yourself feel this. Let your heart settle. And when you're ready, you can say goodbye to her. In your own way. Ellen took a long, shuddering breath. And in that breath, something deep within her loosened. Not healed yet, but beginning to shift. Slowly, she rose to her feet. Her tears had changed. No longer despair, but a quiet, steady resolve. Ellen stepped quietly into the room, her eyes settling on her mother's peaceful face. For a long moment, she simply stood there, breathing softly, letting the truth settle around her. Mom, I finally understand. Her voice quivered, but it carried a gentle certainty. I understand why you loved me so fiercely. Why you held me so close. Why you protected me without ever saying a word. She took her mother's hand in both of hers, feeling the faint warmth that still lingered. Memories, small, tender memories, returned one by one. The soft touch on her forehead when she was sick. The warm meals prepared even on tired nights. The smile her mother wore whenever Ellen succeeded. No matter how small the achievement. All those moments, woven together into a single truth. You were the one who saved me. Ellen leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss on the back of her mother's hand. Thank you for choosing me, for protecting me, for loving me when you didn't have to. She didn't know how long she stayed like that. But when she finally straightened, a quiet calm had settled over her heart. A peace she had never felt before. Holding the letter close to her chest, Ellen stepped out of the room. The hallway felt brighter, as if the heavy weight she carried her whole life had finally lifted. Outside, the sunset had softened into a warm evening glow. Sarah approached carefully. "Ellen, are you all right?" Ellen nodded slowly. "Yes. I know where E came from now. And I know where I'm going." She looked up at the sky, breathing deeply. The shadows inside her, the confusion, the fear, the unanswered questions, all seemed to fade away. "I'm going to live with both of their love," she said softly. "With the love that saved me, and the love that held me." With that, Ellen began walking away from the room. Her steps steady, her heart lighter than it had ever been. A new chapter was beginning, quietly, and full of strength. Thank you for listening until the end. I truly appreciate your time. I'll be back with another meaningful story soon. If you'd like to support this channel, a gentle tap on subscribe, like, or the notification bell would mean a lot and help me continue writing new stories. Wishing you peace and comfort today.